The miscalculation. The crystalline towers of Nexus Prime stretched endlessly into the artificial atmosphere of the massive space station, their surfaces reflecting the light of a dozen different suns. Here, in the heart of galactic civilization, the fate of species was decided daily through trade agreements, territorial disputes, and the delicate dance of interstellar diplomacy. Today, however, something different was happening in the Grand Assembly Hall. Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood quietly at the human delegation's modest podium, her dark eyes scanning the enormous chamber filled with representatives from over 300 alien species. The humans had been members of the Galactic Trade Federation for only 15 years, barely a blink of an eye in galactic terms. They were still considered newcomers, their opinions rarely sought, and their presence barely tolerated. Elena adjusted her simple black diplomatic suit, a stark contrast to the elaborate ceremonial garments worn by the other ambassadors. She had come here today with a straightforward request that should have been routine. The Kepler 442 system contained rich deposits of rare Earth metals that Earth desperately needed for their expanding space program. The system was unclaimed, sitting in neutral space for over 2 centuries. All Elena needed was the standard mining rights approval. But Supreme Chancellor Vextai had other plans. The Chancellor rose from his towering crystal throne, his translucent body pulsing with shifting colors that indicated his emotional state. The Zephyrians were an ancient race, their civilization spanning millennia, while humans were still discovering fire. To him, humanity was nothing more than an irritating newcomer that had somehow stumbled into space travel. The request from the human delegation is denied, Vextai announced, his voice resonating through crystalline vocal chambers that made his words echo eerily throughout the hall. Furthermore, the Federation questions the wisdom of allowing such a primitive species continued access to resources they clearly cannot utilize efficiently. Helena felt her jaw tighten, but she maintained her diplomatic composure. Chancellor, with respect, the Kepler 442 system has been unclaimed for over 200 years. Under Federation law, any member species has the right to file for mining claims in neutral territory. Vextai's colors shifted to deep purple, a sign of amusement among his people. Laws, Ambassador Vasquez, are designed for civilized species. Your people have been part of this galaxy for mere moments. You wage war on your own kind, you poison your own world, and you multiply like parasites. The Federation has observed your species carefully since first contact. The Chancellor gestured broadly to the assembled delegates, many of whom were nodding in agreement. Look around you, human. Do you see the Altarian Empire? Their ships are powered by pure thought. The Vegan Collective can manipulate matter at the molecular level. The Centauri Republic has achieved perfect harmony between a dozen different species. And then we have humans. Elena's hands remained steady, but inside, something cold and calculating was awakening. She had been a diplomat for 20 years, trained to handle insults and provocations, but Vextai wasn't finished. Your species is an evolutionary mistake, the Chancellor continued, his colors now shifting to bright orange, the Zephyrian equivalent of contempt. You are violent, short-lived, and incapable of the higher reasoning required for true galactic citizenship. The Federation has decided that humanity's expansion must be limited. You will be restricted to your home system until such time as you can prove you have evolved beyond your primitive nature. A murmur rippled through the assembly. Even by galactic standards, this was an extraordinary move. To confine an entire species to their home system was tantamount to declaring them a threat to galactic security. Elena's voice remained level when she spoke, but those who knew humans well enough would have recognized the dangerous quiet in her tone. Chancellor, are you saying that the Federation is officially declaring humanity to be a restricted species? I am saying, Ambassador, that your kind has proven itself unworthy of the trust we placed in you. You will return to your little blue world and stay there until you learn to behave like civilized beings. In the observers' gallery, Admiral Zorth of the Draconian Fleet shifted uncomfortably. The reptilian commander had fought in 17 interstellar conflicts and had learned to recognize the signs of impending war. He had studied human military history extensively, something most of his colleagues had dismissed as unnecessary. Now, watching the human ambassador's reaction, he felt a familiar chill run down his scaled spine. Elena nodded slowly, as if processing the Chancellor's words carefully. "I want to make certain I understand correctly, Chancellor Vextai. The Galactic Trade Federation is officially declaring that humanity lacks the right to free movement in galactic space." "That is correct. And you are confining our entire species to the Sol system. Until you prove yourselves worthy of trust, yes." Elena turned to her small delegation, speaking in rapid, quiet English to her aide, Dr. Marcus Webb, Earth's foremost expert on xenobiology and alien psychology. Webb nodded grimly and began typing rapidly on his tablet. "Chancellor," Elena said, turning back to face the assembly, "I want the record to show that the human delegation formally protests this decision and requests immediate reconsideration." Vextay's colors shifted to bright yellow, the equivalent of dismissive laughter. "Your protest is noted and rejected. This session is concluded." As the gavel fell and delegates began filing out, Admiral Zorth made his way quickly to the human delegation. Elena was packing her materials with methodical precision, her movements controlled and purposeful. "Ambassador Vasquez," Zorth said quietly, his gravelly voice barely audible. "A word, if you please." Elena looked up at the towering reptilian officer. Zorth stood nearly 8 feet tall, his scales a deep green that indicated age and experience among his people. His eyes, however, held an intelligence that many species underestimated. "Admiral Zorth, what can I do for you? You may not realize this, but I have made extensive studies of human military history. Your response to the Chancellor's declaration concerns me." Elena's expression remained neutral. "I'm not sure what you mean, Admiral." Zorth glanced around to ensure they were not overheard. "In my studies, I learned something interesting about humans. Every other species in the galaxy, when threatened with extinction or confinement, either submits or fights immediately with everything they have. Humans do something else entirely. Which is, you get quiet, you plan, and then you hunt." Elena met his gaze steadily. "Thank you for your concern, Admiral. But I assure you, humanity will respond through proper diplomatic channels." As Elena walked away, Zorth felt that chill again. He had seen that same calm expression on human faces in historical records just before Normandy, just before Stalingrad, just before every moment when humanity had decided that survival was no longer enough. It was time to win. 3 hours later, aboard the human diplomatic vessel Terra Nova, Elena stood in the secure communications chamber, her image being transmitted via quantum relay to Earth's United Space Command. On the screen before her, Fleet Admiral Sarah Chen listened with growing concern as Elena detailed the Federation's decision. "Let me make sure I understand this correctly," Admiral Chen said, her weathered face showing no emotion. "They've essentially declared us prisoners in our own solar system." "That's correct, Admiral. Chancellor Vextai made it clear that humanity is considered too primitive and dangerous to be trusted with galactic citizenship." Admiral Chen was quiet for a long moment. As the commanding officer of Earth's combined fleet, she had been preparing for this possibility for years. The contingency plans had been drawn up, revised, and refined countless times. Every human officer above the rank of lieutenant knew about Operation Breakout. "Ambassador, do you believe there's any possibility of reversing this decision through diplomatic means?" Elena's expression was grim. "None whatsoever. The Chancellor made this decision with the full support of the major powers. They see us as evolutionary failures, Admiral. In their minds, we're barely more civilized than wild animals." Admiral Chen nodded slowly. "Thank you for the report, Ambassador. Return to Earth immediately. We have a great deal to discuss with the Security Council." As the transmission ended, Admiral Chen turned to her aide, Commander Jackson Torres. Jack, send the activation codes to all fleet commanders. Operation Breakout is now active. Yes, ma'am. Should I inform the other services? All of them. Army, Navy, Marines, Space Force, and Intelligence. Every branch, every command, every base. And Jack. Yes, Admiral. Make sure they understand. This isn't a drill anymore. Across human space, from the orbital shipyards of Luna to the mining colonies of the asteroid belt, from the research stations of Europa to the military bases on Mars, a transformation began. For 15 years, humanity had been careful to present themselves as peaceful, cooperative members of the galactic community. They had hidden their true capabilities, downplayed their military strength, and allowed other species to believe that humans were primitive newcomers stumbling through their first steps into galactic civilization. That pretense was now over. Admiral Chen walked to the observation deck of her flagship, the UES Indomitable, and looked out at Earth's orbital defense platforms. Each platform bristled with weapons that no alien species had ever seen in action. The platforms themselves were marvels of human engineering, designed not just for defense, but for something far more ambitious. Her personal communicator chimed with an incoming message from General Marcus Thompson, Supreme Commander of Earth's military forces. The message was simple and direct. Sarah, they just made the biggest mistake in galactic history. How long do you need? Admiral Chen smiled, a cold, predatory expression that would have terrified anyone who truly understood what it meant when humans decided to go hunting. She typed back, "Give me 72 hours, Marcus. Then let's show them what happens when you cage an apex predator." In the depths of space, human vessels that had been disguised as cargo ships and research vessels began shedding their false hulls, revealing weapons systems and capabilities that defied every assumption the galaxy had made about human technology. On Earth, factories that had supposedly been producing civilian goods switched overnight to military production. Training facilities that aliens believed were for local defense began deploying troops equipped with gear designed for offensive operations in zero gravity and hostile alien environments. But perhaps most importantly, in communication centers across human space, intelligence officers began accessing files that contained detailed information about every alien species in the Federation. For 15 years, while the galaxy had dismissed humanity as primitive, human spies, diplomats, and scientists had been studying, learning, and cataloging the weaknesses of every potential enemy. The galaxy had made one critical error in their assessment of humanity. They had assumed that because humans were new to galactic civilization, they were naive about galactic warfare. They had forgotten the most important lesson of human history. The species that had survived ice ages, plagues, world wars, and their own worst impulses had not done so by being weak. They had done so by being the most adaptable, most resourceful, and most relentlessly determined predators their world had ever produced. And now, for the first time in galactic history, that predator was about to be unleashed on the stars themselves. The hunt begins. General Marcus Thompson stood in the war room deep beneath the Colorado mountains, surrounded by holographic displays showing the position of every human vessel, station, and colony in known space. The 72 hours Admiral Chen had requested were almost up, and the transformation of human civilization from peaceful Federation member to something far more dangerous was nearly complete. Dr. Keiko Tanaka, formerly Earth's chief xenobiologist and now his senior tactical advisor, approached with a tablet full of data. Her transition from scientist to strategist had been seamless, illustrating something the aliens had failed to understand about humans: their ability to adapt their skills to any situation. "General, the psychological profiles are complete," she said, setting the tablet down on the central table. 15 years of careful observation have given us detailed behavioral maps of every major species in the Federation. Thompson nodded, studying the data. While the galaxy had been dismissing humanity as primitive, human intelligence services had been conducting the most comprehensive psychological study in galactic history. Every diplomatic meeting, every trade negotiation, every casual interaction had been carefully analyzed and recorded. "What's our assessment, Doctor?" Tanaka pulled up a three-dimensional map of the galaxy, different species territories marked in various colors. "The Federation's greatest weakness is their assumption that all warfare follows their established patterns. They fight like individual predators. Direct confrontation. Superior technology overwhelming inferior technology. Single decisive battles determining outcomes." She gestured to the human territories, marked in blue. "They've never encountered pack hunters, General. They don't understand coordinated tactical thinking across multiple theaters simultaneously." Thompson smiled grimly. The aliens had made the same mistake countless human enemies had made throughout history. They had judged humanity by their own standards rather than trying to understand what made humans truly dangerous. "Begin Phase 1, Thompson ordered. Across human space, the activation of Phase 1 began with surgical precision. Human vessels that had been patrolling quietly near major trade routes suddenly moved into position, not to attack, but to observe and catalog every ship that passed. Within 6 hours, human intelligence had complete real-time tracking of every major commercial and military vessel in Federation space. The aliens' first indication that something had changed came when trade routes that had operated smoothly for decades suddenly began experiencing technical difficulties. Ships found their navigation systems mysteriously malfunctioning near human territories. Communication arrays suffered inexplicable interference. Automated cargo vessels developed programming errors that sent them wildly off course. None of it was overtly hostile. Each incident, taken individually, could be explained as mechanical failure or computer error, but taken together, they formed a pattern that slowly began to dawn on Federation traffic controllers. Human space had become a black hole for reliable galactic commerce. Supreme Chancellor Vexte was in his private chambers on Nexus Prime when the first reports reached him. His crystalline form pulsed with annoyed orange as he reviewed the data streaming across his personal display. "Aid Scythia." He called to his assistant, a young Zephyrian whose colors immediately shifted to attentive blue-green. "What is the status of the trade disruptions near human territory?" "Chancellor, our analysts believe it's coincidental. The humans appear to be conducting defensive patrols, nothing more. However, shipping companies are beginning to avoid routes near their space, which is causing delays throughout the sector." Vexte's colors shifted to dismissive yellow. Let them play their games. Confining them to their system was the correct decision. Their disruptions only prove how primitive and spiteful they truly are. But in the depths of space, something far more sophisticated than spite was unfolding. Captain Yuki Sato floated in the zero-gravity command center of her vessel, the UES Shadow Walker, watching as her crew monitored communications across 3 different alien star systems simultaneously. The Shadow Walker was one of Earth's most advanced ships, originally designed as a deep space research vessel, but now revealing its true purpose as the most sophisticated intelligence-gathering platform ever constructed. "Captain," her communications officer reported, "we're picking up increased chatter between Draconian and Altarian fleets. They're starting to coordinate patrols." Sato nodded. The aliens were beginning to adapt, exactly as the psychological profiles had predicted. The Draconians, with their military background, would be the first to recognize that the trade route disruptions were too coordinated to be coincidental. The Altarians, with their advanced technology, would provide the technical expertise to counter human electronic warfare. "Signal the Phantom Wing," Sato ordered. "Time for Phase 2. Phase 2 was where humanity revealed the first glimpse of what 15 years of careful preparation had accomplished. While the galaxy believed humans had been struggling to master basic spaceflight, human engineers had been solving problems the aliens never knew existed. The first alien fleet to encounter Phase 2 was a combined Draconian-Altarian patrol investigating the trade route disruptions. Admiral Kresh of the Draconian Navy commanded the 18-ship squadron, confident that his superior firepower and the Altarians' advanced sensors would quickly locate and neutralize whatever primitive human vessels were causing the interference. What they found instead defied everything they thought they knew about human capabilities. The human ships appeared on their sensors for exactly 30 seconds, long enough to be identified and targeted, but not long enough to be engaged. Then they simply vanished, not destroyed or retreating, but genuinely invisible to every detection system in the alien fleet. "How is this possible?" demanded Admiral Kresh, his scaled fists clenching as he stared at empty sensor displays. "Altarian sensors can detect a single molecule across a solar system." His Altarian counterpart, Commander Velnera, was frantically recalibrating her equipment. "Admiral, our sensors show nothing. No energy signatures, no gravitational disturbances, no quantum residue. It's as if the human ships ceased to exist." What neither alien commander understood was that human stealth technology had taken a completely different approach from anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of trying to block sensors, which advanced alien technology could eventually penetrate, human engineers had developed systems that made their ships appear to be empty space itself. The human vessels were still there, still watching, still cataloging every detail of alien fleet movements and tactical responses. But to alien sensors, they had become indistinguishable from the cosmic background radiation. As reports of vanishing human ships spread throughout Federation space, a different kind of disruption began. Admiral Zorth, who had warned Ambassador Vasquez days earlier, found himself summoned to an emergency session of the Military Council. The meeting took place in the secured chambers of the Nexus Prime military complex, with representatives from every major fleet command. Admiral Zorth recognized the signs immediately: panic, poorly disguised as strategic planning. "The situation is contained," insisted General Thrakis of the Centauri Defense Force. "The humans are using some form of primitive stealth technology. Our combined fleets will locate their vessels and end this disruption quickly." Admiral Zorth's gravelly voice cut through the confident chatter. "Has anyone here actually studied human military history?" The room fell quiet. General Thrakis' voice carried a slight edge. "Admiral Zorth, we are well aware that humans have a violent past. That's precisely why they were confined to their system." "No," Zorth replied, standing to his full 8-foot height. "You know they have a violent past. You don't understand what that means." He activated a holographic display showing Earth's surface. "This is a world where the dominant species spent 100,000 years learning to hunt creatures bigger, stronger, and faster than themselves. They developed the most sophisticated pack-hunting strategies ever recorded. And when they ran out of other species to hunt, they turned those same strategies on each other." The display shifted to show images from human history: coordinated military operations across multiple continents, supply lines spanning oceans, communication networks that could coordinate millions of individuals toward a single strategic goal. "Every other species in this galaxy evolved as either predators or prey," Zorth continued. "Humans evolved as both. They understand how prey thinks because they were prey. They understand how predators hunt because they became the ultimate predators." General Thrakis was becoming agitated. "Admiral, with respect, primitive hunting tactics are hardly relevant to modern space warfare." Zorth's expression was grim. "General, what we're seeing now, the coordinated disruptions, the invisible ships, the systematic intelligence gathering, this isn't primitive. This is human pack hunting adapted to galactic warfare. And we just gave them a reason to hunt us." As if summoned by his words, alerts began flashing throughout the chamber. The first Phase 3 operations had begun. Phase 3 was humanity's announcement that the gloves were coming off. Human fleets, no longer hiding behind stealth technology, appeared simultaneously in 17 different star systems, not to attack, but to deliver a message that would echo throughout the galaxy. In the Altarian home system, the UES Vengeance materialized directly above the capital world's orbital defense platforms. In draconian space, 3 human vessels appeared in perfect formation around their primary shipyard. In the Centauri Republic, human ships took positions that clearly demonstrated they could have destroyed critical infrastructure, but had chosen not to. Each fleet broadcast the same message, delivered by Admiral Chen herself. Citizens of the Galactic Federation, 72 hours ago, you declared humanity unfit for galactic civilization. You confined us to our home system like animals in a cage. You made this decision without understanding what you were dealing with. We are here to provide that understanding. A holographic image of Admiral Chen appeared simultaneously on thousands of screens across Federation space, her expression calm but her eyes holding the cold promise of absolute determination. For 15 years, humanity has been the perfect galactic citizen. We have followed your laws, respected your customs, and contributed to your prosperity. We did this not because we had to, but because we chose to. That choice has now been revoked. In the background of each transmission, the sleek profiles of human warships were clearly visible, their weapons powered but not armed, a demonstration of restraint that was somehow more threatening than any open aggression. You called us primitive. You called us evolutionary failures. You said we multiply like parasites and wage war on our own kind. All of this is true, but you failed to understand what this means. Admiral Chen's image stepped closer to the camera. We multiply because we survive. We wage war on our own kind because it makes us stronger. We are not failures. We are the result of 100,000 years of evolution in warfare, adaptation, and survival. The transmission paused as human ships across the galaxy synchronized their next movements. In perfect coordination, every human vessel turned to face the most significant military target in their respective systems. We could have destroyed your orbital platforms, your shipyards, your fleet bases. We didn't. We could have disrupted your trade routes permanently, collapsed your economy, left your worlds isolated and helpless. We didn't. We could have hunted down your leaders, your generals, your decision-makers who condemned our species. We didn't. Admiral Chen's voice carried the weight of absolute certainty. We didn't because we wanted you to understand exactly what you had awakened. Humanity is not just another species. We are apex predators who learned to cooperate. We are survivors who became conquerors. We are the children of a world that tried to kill us every single day. And we not only survived, we thrived. The final phase of the message was delivered as human fleets began moving in perfect synchronization, their courses calculated to demonstrate the impossible. They could be anywhere, at any time, with any force level they chose. The Federation has 72 hours to reverse its decision regarding humanity's status. If this does not happen, you will learn the difference between containing a primitive species and caging the galaxy's most efficient predators. The transmission ended, leaving the galaxy in stunned silence. In his chambers on Nexus Prime, Supreme Chancellor Vextai stared at his now empty screens, his crystalline form pulsing through colors that had no equivalent in any other species' emotional spectrum. For the first time in his long life, he was experiencing something completely alien to his people, the absolute certainty that he had made a mistake that could not be undone. Across the galaxy, in war rooms and command centers, alien strategists frantically began calculating their options. But every analysis reached the same terrifying conclusion. Humanity had spent 15 years learning everything there was to know about their enemies, while their enemies had learned nothing about humanity except what humans had chosen to show them. The hunt had begun, and for the first time in galactic history, every other species was the prey. The galaxy was about to learn what happened when you backed the ultimate predator into a corner. The only question remaining was whether they would surrender their mistake, or whether humanity would be forced to remind them why Earth's children had never lost a war they were determined to win.